Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Takara Tomy release. We've got another new species that has just dropped again, not a dinosaur in the Mattel line. This is just another standard Takara Tomy release, and as you can see, we have a Dracorex, which is really cool. And it's also really cool to have one that's not kind of Jurassic World related, because for the most part, when we do get Dracorex figures, it seems like it's always in like the Mattel line, and it's a Jurassic World dinosaur, whereas this one is not. It looks okay, I will say. It's definitely not one of Takara Tomy's best figures, but it looks alright for what it is. And the box art is pretty much as it usually is when it comes to these Takara Tomy releases. As you kind of move along, you'll see that it looks, again, pretty much like the standard stuff that you usually get from Takara Tomy. So let's pop the box open and check it out. So contained within, we have cards just like we had with the die-along release, and you can see again we've got one in English, which is a plus, allows us to read a little bit about the dinosaur, and also again just kind of get more as far as a look at the figure itself. And then we have our little Dracorex itself, and I must say the figure actually looks a lot nicer out of the packaging and in person than it did on the, actual box art and promo images. I feel like the figure overall just looks a lot more realistic and higher quality detailing on it compared to what we saw on the box. And the coloration is quite an interesting choice with bluish tones, but I feel like if you added a dark wash to it, because of course, Takara Tomy never does that sort of stuff, but if you were to personally add a dark wash to it and help highlight the detail, I think that maybe it could look kind of realistic in this coloration, and it could just, add a little more life to it and a little more realism, because overall it's not a half bad color scheme they've chosen, and is quite, again, a nicely detailed sculpt. So let's go ahead, jump to a closer look, and we'll check it out further from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Dracorex, you can see it does have a pretty decent looking head sculpt, as well as some nice fine detail. You can see the beak sculpted out nicely, we've got the nostrils right there, and some okay skin texture. I feel like the bluish coloration almost kind of shines the detail away, like it's hard to make out how nice the detail is because of the color of the face, but it is definitely nicely done. We've got a black eye painted in there, and then of course as you lead up here into that nice spiky head of our Dracorex, you can see we've got a brownish tone start to pick up, but then on the actual top of the head we have a nice reddish tone that overtakes basically the entire top of the head, which honestly looks really cool. I like that addition. Not something that I've really ever seen before, but I think looks good on the figure. You can see more browns and stuff following around all the spikes leading off of the back of the head and then down into the side of the head. Of course, you're not going to get a, massively high quality paint job on one of these figures, but I feel like if you took the time out to paint out all of the spikes and everything here on the back of the head, it could look super, super cool. Another thing that I liked about the die-along was that we had neck articulation, and we actually have neck articulation on this one, but again, it's kind of different. The other one was on a swivel, whereas this time we have the ability to kind of go up and down with the neck articulation. Now, obviously, the reason for that is so that our Dracorex can then smash things with its head. With a dinosaur like this, you would definitely want it to be able to achieve this position, I feel like. But again, it's just nice to see neck articulation on these figures. As you move down, you can see the arms sculpted out, and although they are similar to the die-along in kind of an awkward position, it is another one of those situations where I feel like they could have articulated the arms, although it would have been a little awkward, I think, maybe for this one, but it would have been nice to just have the ability to articulate the arms on the figure. As you can see the seam where the arm was connected, it wouldn't have been hard to do that. But as you move down into the hands, you can see the fingers sculpted out, if my camera would focus on it correctly. No nail paint again. You'll see no nail paint for the feet, something that both this and the die-along share. As you move along the back of the dinosaur, you can see a small line of ridges following along the spinal column, though they kind of wear out as you lead toward the tail. We have that brown tone following along the back of the dinosaur, and every so often kind of striping down briefly into the body. We can also see again the bluish tone of the body is pretty decent, and you can see the skin texture actually looks really good in the side of the stomach. And as you lead to the underside, you transition to a light grayish sort of tone here, almost like a grayish blue. And again, similar to the die-along, it looks oddly strange on the underside. Like you can really see it looks kind of sucked in and heavily shrink-wrapped, which doesn't look very healthy for our dinosaur. As you move down into the leg, though, you can see some muscle definition. You can see the knee, the calf muscle. The leg as a whole looks incredibly muscular, and this dinosaur has definitely been doing a whole lot of running. It's staying in great shape for sure. As you move down into the foot sculpt, you can see the foot sculpt looks pretty decent as a whole. The nails overall look really good as far as the sculpt goes. Again, it just would have been nice to have paintwork for the nails. But I think the overall foot and leg and everything, basically from the ankle down, is probably one of the nicest areas sculpt-wise of the figure. We do also have articulation for the legs, of course, forward and back, which moves very nicely, and you'll see that for both legs, which is always a great thing. And then as you lead out into the tail, again, we've got that seam, you know, that ball joint basically, where you can move the tail up and down. If you twist the ball joint, you can then go left and right, but it makes it a little bit awkward. But you can see, again, you've got that brown following along the top, and then the blue here on the underside. That light tone tapers off before we ever lead out into this part of the tail. But overall, it is a decent looking figure. Of course, you're going to see the same thing from both sides. Again, it's actually a way nicer figure than I was expecting it to be, and although I knew I wanted it because it was a new species to the Takara Tomy line, I felt like this one was probably just going to be a very passable figure. But in fact, it's actually a really nice one, and I would say even nicer than the Dylong. The figure overall is definitely quite small for a length. You are looking at 4 inches or 10 centimeters. Now, if you extended the head down, it would obviously be a little bit longer. But when it comes to a height in this position, you are looking at about 2 inches or a little over 5 centimeters. Heading toward 5.5, but not really all that close. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Takara Tomy Dracorex. And I think with this visual, you can really tell that the size range of the Dracorex is the same pretty much as the Dylong, or very close at the very least. So obviously at a bit of a smaller size range. And to further show you that, there is the Takara Tomy Dylong next to the Dracorex, and you can very clearly see they're pretty much the same size, obviously a little different in length and body mass and stuff, but overall extremely similar in size. And just like we did for the Dylong, here is a Metal Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus, just to step in and give you one final comparison of our Dracorex and kind of show off the fact that it is definitely on the smaller side. So this brand new Takara Tomy Dracorex figure is actually pretty fun, and I would say is maybe one of the nicest figures they've had come out sculpt-wise in quite a while. It looks really good when it comes to the skin texture and the fine detail, and the head sculpt specifically is one of the nicer head sculpts I've seen in quite some time. Overall, I would say the only area that looks somewhat awkward for the sculpt would be the underbelly and the fact that it's definitely quite shrink-wrapped, but past that point, I feel like the detailing, especially in the feet and everything, looks really good. The paint apps are okay, they're nothing to marvel over, and it's not like it's any kind of incredible, very memorable paint scheme, but it looks, I guess, kind of natural. Like I said earlier, I feel like with a dark wash, it could highlight the detail in a way where the bluish coloration does look natural on the figure. And right now, it just seems more like paint on a figure. The coloration and the paintwork is kind of thick on the figure, so it almost washes the detail away in some areas, but if you were able to apply a dark wash, I feel like it would bring that detail back out. But, you know, beyond that point, I feel like the paintwork is decent, it's just not amazing. But the figure does also have some pretty fun articulation, and again, the ability to kind of extend the head down to attack is definitely something you would like to see on a species of dinosaur like this, so that's also a plus. Overall, it's not a masterpiece by any means, but it is still a pretty fun figure. If you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where you can grab this on eBay, assuming I can find a link. Again, sometimes they're a little tricky to find, especially with these newer Takara Tomy figures, but I should be able to find you guys a link, so make sure you check that link. I do want to give a massive shout out and thank you to Dino Mike Mac, my good buddy who helped me to acquire both this and the Dylong. So again, thank you so much to him for his help as always, and of course, check that link if you want it. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.